is Real Talk Darbs, and I have very exciting news for you. Denarii Cash and Beam & Go has decided to tie up to bring groceries to your loved ones in the Philippines. By using the application Denarii Cash, you can actually deliver yung mga groceries na gusto nating ipadala door to door sa Pilipinas. In light of the community quarantine and growing COVID-19 cases in the Philippines, we are tying up with Beam & Go para sa mga kababayan nating OFW na nandito sa UAE to buy groceries. So what are you waiting for? Download Denarii Cash app now and enjoy a lot of services, not just sending money, but also sending grocery to your families at home.
Yon! So, welcome to another Finance Friday with Kuya Jay, aka the Purpose-Driven Advisor. And we are currently streaming sa Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Also, ang episode na to will be available sa aking podcast right after. Siguro, I'll try to make it a little quicker than the usual. Hindi ko na gagawin delayed ang aking podcast. Okay? So, most definitely, baka tomorrow or the next day after, nandun na siya sa Pera and Purpose Podcast. Okay? Nandun siya sa Spotify, Anchor, and Apple Podcast if you're gonna listen to this episode in the future. And of course, a huge thanks to our regular viewers out there. And a big shout out sa Denarii Cash for supporting my advocacy on financial literacy. And alam niyo ba, ang guest natin today is none other than its founder. Kasi ang pag-uusapan namin is how you can start a startup. So, for the longest time, matagal ko nang gustong tanong sa kanya to eh. And I was given the opportunity to finally interview him kung paano ba talaga ang startup life. Kasi marami sa atin are always curious kung paano ba natin sisimulan. Yun yung pinakamahirap eh. Yung pag-i-start ng business or ng entrepreneurial journey. And most definitely, lahat mag-start tayo with a startup. So, let me just first introduce to you yung ating guest. Well, nasabi ko na siya yung founder ng Denarii Cash. And before that, he has also started some other companies like yung Search Fuse and even itong afterschool.ae. So he'll tell us more about his journey right after a few minutes. So without further ado, let me introduce to you our host for today. Our guest for today, Mr. Jon Edward Santillan. Brother, kamusta? Ikaw yung naging host.
Hello. Magandang hapon, magandang Friday to everyone. I can be a host as well. I have a lot of questions.
Nahusta ka pang host ka sa akin today.
Kamusta, Jay?
Eto, na-enjoy ko yung kape ko. At alam mo naman, pag mga ganitong topics, it's really something that I really love speaking about. And I also want to speak to the experts that I consider and yung mga tao na nagawa na yung mga bagay na gusto kong gawin in the future. And definitely sa ganitong larangan sa startup, ikaw lang talaga kilala ko sa circle ko eh, na nakapagtayo ng isang, I consider is a successful startup. So, Huwag na natin patagalin to. Let's go for our next question na kasi I know you're a busy person. Ano ba talaga, bro, ang startup? What does it really mean during these days? Kasi I think iba siya sa i-define mo versus dun sa ginawa naming small company or young company like yung on distinctive designs. You mentioned about that. Pero how do you define a startup ba? What is it exactly?
In my opinion, yung startup, I would say involves technology. I think there's a huge discussion in different communities sa Facebook na actually involved kung ano yung startup. Pero the way I see it, in my interpretation ng startup is more on based in tech or technology. Startup that is involved internet or online and start with small that you can actually grow on a faster rate. So I think yun yung definition ko in my opinion ng startup. So startup involves online technology and growth, I would say, or scalability or being able to scale a business with the less resources, I would say. So yun yung definition ko ng startup, Jay.
Okay. Kasi ang pagkakatanda ko niyan lagi pag in my younger years, pag sinabing startup, yan yung laging yung traditional na businesses na you go to you do something, you reach for, I mean you start an idea and then write a business plan. Hindi nga namin mention ng technology back then So I think it's about time that Filipinos should really embrace itong technology when starting companies. Now, since we've already mentioned about that and you mentioned some key terms dito sa startup journey mo, ano ba yung mga important things that we need to know for us to start a startup? I think it should start with idea, di ba? Like building your ideas and all. So, anong gagawin ko kung let's say ako may naisip ko idea. Let's say for me na lang, as a perfect example, ang passion ko is all about financial literacy. And I want to solve yung problem, which is yung tamang advice right at the palm of every Filipino's hand para hindi sila mabentahan ng basta-basta lang and sila mismo is aware of every financial product available to them. So start with idea. What would I do with that idea?
Okay, so the question is, what are the things that you need to start a business? So of course, sinabi mo, so if we're going to go back to sa sinabi ko na startup is like a technology, right? So you'll start with the idea. So idea that actually something that you can test, something that you can validate through online or through people that you talk to, right? So there are different types of way of building ideas. So one is, I guess the way I see it is like one, typical idea is something that solving problem that you're facing. And then from that problem, pwede ka makapag-generate ng ideas. So it could be ideas or problem that other people are facing around you, where you can create within those ideas. On the other side, meron ding mga generating ideas based from different location or different geographic location. So let's say, when Uber were actually performing very, very well in the US, they were started there. That idea to bring Uber to the Middle East, i.e., for example, Karim, could be a potential during that time na i-implement sa Middle East. So that idea was not generated or originated from the actual founders, but they just look at the feasibility or the possibility of implementing the same model or the same idea sa ibang market. So that would be, I would say, how you could actually build ideas. So the first one would be solving your problem, or the second option would be solving someone's problem. And third one is adapting someone's idea where you would like to implement those. So those are the three ways of how you can build ideas. Now, from your side, I would say because you're solving someone's problem and na nakita mo na may opportunities, that's simply how you could actually generate ideas from that.
Okay, so from a personal problem to somebody else's problem and adapting ina-adapt mo would be yung other people's ideas then, right? Like what you said about Uber.
Yeah, I think you will find, the same thing, right? So it's like you're looking for some problem or some challenges that you can actually apply existing ideas already in the market. So I think with that case of Uber and Karim, we know that there's a lot of segment where bachelor, there's a lot of middle income segment in the UAE, and they thought like maybe it's much more viable to try the similar model of Uber to Karim, and that's where all started, I believe, right? So it's not their own problem; it's an existing problem rather. It's not their own idea; it was an idea from somewhere else that can be implemented dito sa UAE or in any other jurisdiction. Like for example, in the Philippines, you have now Grab, right? So so it's the same thing. So it's not their idea. But you have a different option. So yeah. So that's, I would say, like how you could actually build your own ideas.
Okay, so very important talagang ideas. Kasi I remember, bro, nung kabataan ko, ang iniisip ko, if I want to have a business, I need to have the money first. Money muna. Kasi sabi, wala akong kapital. Paano ako mag-start ng business? Wala akong kapital. So ito yung reason, ito yung nangyayari. Kaya ako nag-took up ng nursing. Kasi sabi ko na, hindi naman kami sobrang yaman, and we don't have money to put up a capital. So I really thought na kailangan ko muna mag-earn ng capital, and for me to earn that capital is to find a job that will give me a high-paying salary. Kaya ako nag-nursing. And unfortunately, hindi ko siya tinuloy talaga. After ko makuha license, I really felt that it's not something for me. Pero I really want to start a business. And then as I grew older, siguro after a decade, I just then realized that what you are saying now, as I read on the books then, everything begins with the idea. Yung money nga was not even a huge topic dun sa dun sa how you start a business eh. So like what you're also saying to me right now is talagang everything begins with the idea. Probably yung problema mo personally, problema ng ibang tao, and yung ginagawa nga ng ibang companies that they're also solving na I think you would also be able to utilize or ma-maximize. Ngayon, paano ko naman i-validate yung idea ko na to? Yan, how do we validate this idea? Tama ba to? Is this something that I really have to pursue? Is it worth my time, my effort, and my blood, sweat, and tears? How do you do that?
I think bago that, let me just go back dun sa previous na experience mo. I think that's a common mistake to everyone, right? So yung before even generating a business or idea, kailangan mo na ng capital. I think that's everyone have experienced that. I mean, even myself, nung nag-uumpisa pa lang ako, like not on Denarii Cash, but like other companies that we built from the past. But I guess we've learned, I mean, one of the things that I would recommend is, which is actually one of my very close friends who actually advised me, like not really in the early days, but maybe in the middle of the time that actually building the company, it's more on get someone that's been there, have experience building a company, and become like, ask for a mentor or advisor and learn from that. So I think that would be best way to, I would say, to avoid all of those mistakes at saka learn more from how you can actually build with less resources and less money. Now, the next question would be, how would you validate yung idea mo? There's a lot of common mistake building a company when yung founder or the founder or the someone actually person who would like to start a business is, you typically get excited and start building the business without validating it yet, right? I mean, again, same common mistake. I've experienced it from the past. And the way I would say it is validating the product or the idea. The best way to look at it is talk to people na facing the same problem. I think that would be the first one. So either you, right, or I think if you ask yourself, it could be bias, right? So sa resulta ng to validate the idea, but without creating anything yet, right? Or even just a Google spreadsheet or a Word document, or there's a lot of tools or platform that you can use now online where you can create survey and then ask specific questions doon sa problem that you're trying to solve. So for example, let's say for example in the finance side or in the insurance side, right? Question would be, when is the best time for you to get your insurance, right? How important insurance for you, right? So from scale from 1 to 10, right? What are the factors for you when you're looking for your particular insurance? The insurance type, right? So that gives you an identify, because insurance like, excuse me, but it's a very vague, masyadong malaki and masyadong broad, right? So if you would like to focus on very specific or very niche or only on a particular nationality segment, maybe there's an opportunity in there. And the more you talk to people, the more you will see yung problema nila, right? And then yung challenges that they're facing, or things that they don't know. I remember like when we were starting, one of the challenges that we were facing is like how we can educate the whole diaspora about the importance of the financials and be it on taking the insurance and other means of financial sector or factors, right? And when we start talking to people, most of the challenge is, hindi ko alam yan, no, hindi tinuro sa akin yan, right? So that already gives you an idea like, so I think by putting my material online, I could touch people's life by educating them even indirectly, but helping them to learn more about the finance side. So that could validate. So one of my recommendations is don't start anything yet unless you talk to your customer or to the people that your main target market or target customer, because the specific idea that you have, it could change later on. Pwede siya magbago depending on how you interact sa mga customer mo. I mean, same with Denarii. When we were starting, it's a totally different way of how we look at things, and we're still changing things based on our understanding sa behavior. But that's how I would validate the idea. And again, I think gusto kong stress out na don't start anything, from the technology perspective. Don't develop anything. Start talking to people. Ask people about those particular questions that you would like to get answers.
Okay, and when you say na don't start anything yet, this includes the products and services, right?
Yes.
Yun.
Right.
Parang
So,
karamihan.
if you imagine, sorry to butt in, Jay, if you imagine like for us, for example, kung di kami mag-uumpisa ng Denarii, imagine if we will start applying for a license and then we haven't validated the problem yet. That will cost us like arms and legs and everything before, and then after that we identify, oh, this is not the right idea for us, then it will be difficult for us to retract all this expense, yung mga ginastos namin sa company. So before anything else, before putting a lot of effort and resources and money, the best way to do it is talk to your customer or potential customer, and that itself can create you can help you to validate the idea that before proceeding on the product or MVP as they call it, and so on.
So validation, so parang as we are progressing this conversation, parang validation is kung nandun dapat sa validation yung pinaka-effort before you actually begin. Kasi gusto mo na you're addressing the right problem, right? And addressing the right audience as well.
Yeah, I think knowing the right problem, I think that's the most important part. Kasi yung problema mo could actually be a problem, it's not a problem by your customer. That's a typical I think typical founder dilemma where you thought like everyone have the same problem, but when you start talking to people, it's like, oh, hindi pala nila problema. Ang very specific problem is actually this one and not this one. So learning from that customer is actually very important to validate the idea.
Galing. Yung pala. Okay. Dun pala dapat. Kasi karamihan, parang sabihin, nakadiscover ako ng drug. Kunyari, ito yung drug. And this will solve the problem of humanity. Yun naman pala, hindi naman pala yung sobrang problema ng tao. Kumbaga parang sipon lang siya na kayang i-address ng herbal medicine, and you've exerted a lot of effort producing that drug. Right? So, okay. Mukhang I really have to rethink about doing the next steps na. Wow. Okay. Now, I'm in that phase. And how do I execute? Sige nga, paano yan? You're the man of execution, so how does one execute?
I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it, right? So I guess the first one would be, I mean, execution is a very broad question. I mean, but if we're going to talk about from the idea to validation to execution, so I guess the first execution would be talk to your customer, right? So use tools to create surveys, and then ask questions about a certain problem that they are facing. Another interesting would be telling them about your idea. I think that would be an interesting one, right? So let's say ask yung mga customer mo or potential customers about your idea and see how they would actually how they would explain it to you. So that would be ways to validate, and then from executing of that particular idea. So once you already have all this idea and you have validated it, the next question is, what's the most minimum way for you to put an effort to start that product, right? So again, it's a common mistake sa founders is they start building this all the shebang, all the product, the singing and dancing product, all at the same time. And then pagkatapos nun, when they serve it to the customer, they're expecting that everyone knows how to use the product. So the best way to execute it is they call it like MVP or minimum viable product. So kung ano yung pinakamadaling paraan at pinaka-simple na paraan to produce the product for the user to test it and then get more feedback to improve the product, that would be the best way to do it. So it's not necessarily, for example, an example of creating a mobile application, right? So if you think from your side, it will take you, I don't know, $20,000, $30,000 to develop the product, which you don't have at the moment, the best way for you to execute it and to have that at least ready and try it is, why don't you just start with the with websites, right? So na mobile view, or that's actually can be viewed on a mobile, and marami ng type of platform that you can create by yourself. You can create that website by yourself, and it will automatically view it in a mobile, and at least it's not the same experience, but at least gives some indication of what would be the best way to improve the product. So the best way to execute is less resource, use an existing platform. Don't reverse engineer. There's already a lot of available platform out there, and the way you look at it from the founder perspective, or yung nagbibuild ng company, is let the customer help you to build the product rather than all those things coming from you, right? So what at the end of the day, what you want is people love your product, right? Build something that what people want or love, and I think the most important part is continuous engaging with the users to improve your product, and the way continues to execute it. Maybe that's more on the product side, but continuous execution, I think that helps me. It's more prioritize yourself, right? So ano yung importante sa iyo to move your things forward. So there's when I joined this one accelerated program, meron silang term na one metric that matters most. Ano ba yung pinaka-importanting metric sa'yo to move things to the next milestone? So it could be, it could be producing the product, it could be talking to the customer, right? So that helps you to identify your KPI or key performance metrics, right? Or indicators, right? And by just having those as a priority, it helps you to find out, anong kailangan mong execute, in what time, and what are the expected results. I think that's the most important part on how you can execute things.
Grabe. Parang sasabog din utak ko sa dami pa lang ng sinabi mo, bro. Babalikan ko talaga to mamaya after our live. So, parang ang naalala ko pa rin would be talagang you really need to get the feedback of your target audience, of the people you want to help and the problem you want to solve. Yun yung pinaka-core eh. Yun yung pinaka-core. And then, find ways, yung tools nga. And maganda sinabi mo na when you're starting, kailangan operate at the least cost possible. Instead of building an app, you build a website, which is magbibigay pa rin ng same result for the meantime. And at the same time, you're already solving some problems without you spending so much money. And what will make a startup stand out? Kasi, di ba, like your case, kailangan meron pang tinatawag na fundraising, meron pang mga VC or venture capitals, pero para ba umabot ka sa point na yon, your startup has to stand out first, or it the other way around?
It's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of factors on those one. How makes a startup stand out? I think, I guess the first one is it depends on how you look at it. If you look at it from the fundraising perspective, you have a different way for the startup to stand out. If you are looking on the consumer side or the customer side, it's also different factors to make your startup stand out, right? And I think it would be depending dun sa customers or the people that actually you talk to or your target at the moment. So if we're going to look at from the customer perspective, how would you stand out? Probably, how effective is the product? How efficient is the product or your services? Nagpo-provide ka ba talaga ng value sa customer mo, right? Who are the team behind it? Are they credible? Are they credible? Right? Do they have people actually trust them? Do they have the experience to do it? Right? From the fundraising side, it's totally different. If you're in the early stage, it's more on the narrative of your company. Who's the team behind it? I think the same from that perspective. But I guess at the end of the day, from the early stage, the narrative of the company, the market that you're playing to, like how big is the market, how good are the guys in terms of execution, from the experience, and who are the team involved. I think that's a very important part. from the fundraising or from the VC side, venture capitalist side, and from the customers. I always said it's more on the the value proposition, right? That's how would I say for you to stand out.
So I've been watching itong mga Shark Tank episodes for the last 2 to 3 weeks, and I also listened din sa episode ni Nas Daily na I think ewan ko, share ko sa'yo, share mo sa akin yun.
Yeah.
Di ba, parang nagtanong si Nas Daily how much i-value nung dalawang VCs yung company niya, kasi sabi ni Nas Daily ang value ng kanyang company is $4 million. And then nung valuate ng dalawa, parang naging sarcastic na nga yung episode na yung mga and I will evaluate your company for $4 million and 1 episode. Meaning, kumbaga, yung profit ng 1 episode lang idadagdag nila for the entire value of the company. Pero sabi ni Nas doon, how come it's only valued at 4 million? I'm spreading so much value sa mga I'm changing people's lives. And then there's one app which only does is to walk the dog. Yung alam mo yun, basta ganun yung app, and it's valued at valued at 1 billion pesos. How did that happen? How come that kind of app is valued higher than my app or my company? So paano yun? Parang mas nag-stand out siya in terms of valuation. Pero in terms of value sa pagbago ng buhay ng tao, parang hindi naman. So paano ina-explain yung ganun?
Yeah, I mean I've actually pakinggan ko yung podcast ni Nas. And he's with Kylie Nang and Shilmonot, and Shilmonot is one of our investor from 500 Startup or 500 FinTech rather. Well, I guess yung question dun kay that particular topic, it's more on the way, in my opinion, the way actually VC look at companies or startup in terms of a future valuation, if you like. It's more on the scalability of the company, right? So with that idea from Nas would be ang problema dun is Nas is siya lang mag-isa, and people trust him and then his credibility by creating this content. So the question from that investor perspective is like, how can I multiply Nas so at least I can multiply that type of valuation that he's generating? And because you cannot multiply Nas in terms of effectiveness, the quality, the creativity, so Nas is only Nas, which is only one person. Unlike sa other company, let's say for example, yung platform na sinabi mo, which is yung a platform for walking dogs sa US, I think they have the type of scalability in a sense of you don't need to produce more people. Like you can have a set of 10 people all at the same time, but you can multiply the companies 10x, 20x, 30x, right? An example for us is with Denarii Cash. I mean, we are same people or same individual when we open up 11 countries. That's how we scale without additional expense, and that's where different factors, of course, evaluation. I mean, looking valuation, it's a very complex one. I would say it's more on art than science. Some people says, some people value based on their experience. Kunyari, ex-founder ka na or nakapag-experience sa kanang build ng company. So it could be people that you hired from the past. It could be, from the licensing perspective. I'm not sure if you heard about, one company sa Pilipinas. They just got a license and they got invested by, one top 3 VCs from globally, and they just raised an enormous a lot of money, and because they get the license from the Philippines. So different types of people or VCs look at different factors or elements to value the company, but commonality, I would say that like the top common factors that VC are looking at are, first is how big is the market, right? And the team, and the traction, right? So very, very important. I mean, it's a case-to-case basis, but most startup or raising money to VC, you need to show traction and learning from those traction. Are you growing, twice, 2 times month over month or 10 times month over month? that gives some indication that, hey, if this company can do it 20% month over month or compounded month over month, in 1 year, that'd be exponential, right? And that's what VC excites. That's how they they get excited, especially like gano'ng kalaki yung market mo. And yeah, so that's how they look at the valuation. So in summary, with that example that you've said, VC look more scalability size, right? So like how you can scale quickly with the less resource or technology focus base from the valuation perspective, plus the traction, plus the team, right? And then the second one would be if it's not scalable, then definitely there will be some challenge, and that's why one of the reason you'll get a lower valuation, if you like.
Dun pala yun. It's all about duplicating yung company. Tama ba? Pagkakaano ko, it's replicating yung company itself with less expense as much as possible. And I then realized na since yung tinayo din namin company is mainly on the creative side, ito yung sinabi mo sa amin na yung ginawa namin is something na hindi scalable. Which is talagang, I then realized after 1 year na if wala yung isa sa amin, walang makagawa nung ginagawa niya. Kasi nga, hindi naman siya robot, isa siyang tao. Parang si Emong hindi i-replicate si Emong. Ang hirap.
Yeah. I think kahit na let's say nagagawa niya, right? So let's say the best example would be like yung sabi mong example na one person can accommodate 3 customers. So if you would like to do 6 customers, then you need to replicate 1 person sa inyo, right? So for example, you need to have 2 mang Emong. And then if you need 9 customer, then you need to have 3 mang Emong, right? Or 3 individuals who can do the job. And so, I mean, it is scalable, but actually it's very expensive to scale because you need to have more people to be involved. And the problem in there is they call it like churn, like if those people drop out and did not continue your contract, then you still have these 9 people that you need to pay the salary every month. And that's one of the, consulting is very lucrative business, definitely. I mean, I've experienced it, but I mean, it's not something that you can scale it like very fast rather.
Yeah, and din yung challenge ko sa being a financial planner, how can I scale yung ginagawa ko right now since I'm in the consulting side? Wow, okay, mamaya iisipin ko pa uli yan. Pero before we continue with this juicy episode about startups, let's have a break first kasi we're already in our 30-minute mark. And of course, ang episode na to is brought to us by Jon Santillan. Okay.
Sending money back home is expensive, slow, and time-consuming. Not anymore. Introducing Denarii Cash. Denarii Cash solves this in a simple way. Denarii Cash don't send money across border. Yes, you heard it right. So, you want to know how do we send money internationally without sending across the border? Simple. You make a local payment to Denarii Cash, and Denarii Cash makes a local payment to your recipient. That's right, it's local in then local out. From any account to any cash pickup and major bank account. That's the reason why Denarii Cash makes money transfers so much cheaper and faster. Available on any mobile, tablet, and computer. Denarii Cash is trusted and loved by tens of thousands of people just like you. So what are you waiting for? Sign up now and start saving now with Denarii Cash.
And we're back. I'm still with the founder of Denarii Cash, Mr. Jon Santillan. But before we continue of our juicy topic about starting a startup, gusto ko munang batiin ang mga nanonood, no? So thank you so much again sa aking one and only ever supportive girlfriend, si Miss Marie Cruz Mission. Ayan, no? She's also saving through Denarii Cash, di ba? For my monthly remittances. Ang dami na nakadala niyan, Brad, through Denarii. Loyal yan. Ilan na yung na-recruit niyan? Na-recruit tuloy or na-refer niyan sa Denarii Cash. Okay. Yung kapatid ko sa Pinas, heart. Oy, mag-aral ka mabuti, ha? And then si Hannah is saying, ganda ng topic, Sir Jay. Of course! Hope you can share it, ha? Kasi I know you also want to have your own startup one of these days or sometime in the future. So, etong napag-usapan na namin ni Mr. Jon Santillan is kung paano mag-start from an idea, how you validate it, and we also talked about yung scalability and understanding better yung target audience and target market mo and even the problem that you want to solve. Now, as we are progressing, let's say, oh sige, nandiyan na, nakita ko na, I think it's scalable naman. And it stands out to my customers. Tumaas yung, yung listings ko or yung registered users ko. So I think there's a potential in this company that I want to build. Now, gusto mo tong ilapit sa mga VCs, right? And then you mentioned na tinitingnan nila yung scalability. So you think it's scalable, you've already tested it. And during the process na you are pitching ba yung tawag doon? Or you are in that, so how do you...
Fundraising, pitching, yeah.
Okay, so yun na pala yung fundraising na pala tawag doon, which is already here. Now, can you siguro can you explain to us or share with us yung experience mo during yung fundraising days mo? Or di ba until now you're still raising funds, right? Even if you've already and I think you raised some good amount of funds over the last couple of months or weeks. So, ano ba yung experience? Paano ba to? And I think na-mention ka about burning or what? I'm not sure about the terms, pero explain mo na lang po.
So, yes, I mean, I think this is something that I'm actually learning every day as well aside in the company. So, I mean, as a CEO or as a founder, you will always be fundraising. That's what I said. So for us, yes, we fundraised last year, and we're in the process of closing our fundraising, and as we speak. So the process would be, paano ba magiging ready in terms of, you could say that you're ready for the fundraising side. So there's a different stages for the fundraising. So merong parang ideation, merong they call it like seed stage, pre-stage, or pre-seed, merong Series A, Series B. So those stages more on like how mature is your company or yung startup mo, to be kung paano siya maging attractive sa investor or people that would like to invest sa company. So couple of things that you need to prepare for fundraising. Of course, the first one are your idea, right? So what is the narrative of the idea? Bakit mo siya inumpisahan? What problem are you solving? And the second one is the market, like how big is the market? Why do you think you're the best person or best team to execute this on this particular market? What is your traction? Kung nag-umpisa ka na, what you've learned, kung anong insights mo na wala yung iba, that could be part of your for fundraising side. The business model, how do you make money, which is a very, very important part, right? And another one is marketing. How do you acquire users on a much more efficient or effective way? And all of these factors can be combined into one material, or we call it like pitch deck or one presentation. And then another one in addition to that inside the presentation would be more on yung sasabong, runway or burn rate or all those factors. I think that could be later on. But basically, in a layman's term, it's more on kung magkano yung ginagastos mo every month, right? To run the business, or for example, it could be magkano yung ni-spend mo, yung ginagastos mo to acquire the users. That could be it as well. So those are the ideas those are the information that you need to have sa isang pitch deck or sa presentation. And then after that, identify kung sino yung mga do you think that would be interested to invest on you. So for example, if you are on a seed stage or super early stage, typically it's more on angel investor, as we call it. So angel investor is individual that have a capacity to invest based on their, monthly income and so on. So that could be it, right? The second one, of course, is the institution, right? So venture capital, like 500 startup, like Techstar, or like 500 startup, Y Combinator. Well, that's also a later program. And once you identify that one, then you start looking for someone that could actually refer, pwede kang i-refer nila doon sa company na contact mo. So it's a very important, it gives you more credibility or more weight if someone actually kung meron mag-i-introduce sa'yo. So let's say, for example, I would like to raise to Mang Emo, right? And I don't know, for example, Mang Emo, and I said like, hey, Jay, I believe, Mang Emong and I have a very similar interest sa videography and video production, and he have a capacity to invest. Why don't you just intro me to him, and then we can reach out, right? So I would say that's how would I do it in terms of fundraising. And then most of the experience that I do have sa fundraising is, hindi laging makaka-receive ka ng yes, right? So there will always, most of the time, you will receive a rejection. So you need to get used to it. Hindi mo naman kailangan ng everyone will say yes when you're fundraising. You just need at least one. One or two is more enough to move to the next level. So those are, I would say, information or material or things na kailangan mo when you are fundraising.
Wow, parang habang sasalita, ini-imagine ko na kung paano ko i-run yung mga ganyang scenario, no? Kasi parang, okay, there's a huge problem that I wanna solve, pero ito talaga yung hindi ko alam gawin eh. Kasi lalo na ako, wala namang idea about tech, di ba? Lintech, ano ba yung tech? Parang, yung tech pa lang is already a roadblock for me and hindi ko siya masimulan kasi nga wala ko idea about it. Kasi I'm that kind of person na gusto kong aralin as much as possible yung lahat ng area. Pero yung tech is something na talaga hindi ko kaya. It's super grueling na numbers and all, and codes and all. So when you are raising this money na, is it also something that you consider is the exit plan? Tinatanong din ba yan ng mga VCs?
Yeah, of course. I think just to answer yung question mo kanina na, may problema sa tech or you don't know how to start. I mean, there are different ways to look at it, right? So merong mga community-based sa Facebook, right? Sa online where you can look for founders or co-founder rather na pure tech ang magaling sila sa technology, right? And then you are on a business side, right? Of course, kailangan mo i-forge yung relationship mo sa kanila. We call it like kind of founders dating, right? So you date with your co-founders and, making sure na they have the similar interests, right? And they have the same, they believe on your, on the problem na sinusolve mo or the mission or the vision. So there's a lot of alternative ways. We've looked at, I think the best way to look for founders is to attend to this type of, webinar or accelerator program that actually people with the similar interest of building a company that don't know yet what to do, but they would like to build it in the future. So, I mean, that could be a way to look for a co-founder side. Now, the second one would be, what would be the second one, Jay? The second question would be...
The second question would be, nasa na nga ba? I think it's more on, kasi I wanna lead na dun sa flow na paano na ako mag-start ng team ko eh. Na kasi let's say I already have, okay sige, nakapag-raise ako ng funds. So, wait lang. Pag ba nakapag-raise ako ng fund, does it mean I'm already successful? Is it a measure?
No, it's not.
Kasi headline yan eh, parang, okay, Denarii Cash has raised 150K. Okay, celebration, all that stuff. And kanina pala, I think 5 hours ago, I was reading an article about Ayala raising 180M na funding. I think nabasa mo yun, no? And ang nagba-manage nun is yung Kickstart, Kickstart Venture sa Pinas. So, when they get these funds, does it mean they're already successful or hindi kanila yung pera na yun, right? It's not the company's money. It's something that they have to spend.
Yes.
And if they lose that money, what happens? It's bigla lang naisip ko.
Yeah, I think the first one is, okay, let me go back again yung question I remember na yung exit, right? So, in the company, it's very important that you have an exit plan. So, different type of exit plan. So, it could be buyout from other competitors or people that could actually have an interest sa company mo. It could be a merge, right, with an existing company. It could be an IPO. So, maraming different ways to an exit. Now, in terms of fundraising, I think yung kay Ayala sa Pilipinas, that structure is totally different. It's more on LP-GP structure. I mean, it's also fundraising, but fundraising to invest for startups. But I think it goes down to the credibility of Kickstart, of course, but of course from the VC perspective, right? So VC, yung mga venture capital, they also raise money para makapag-invest sa mga startup. So they are also experiencing the same experience of founders alike, but it's much more on a higher ticket size and much more mature market. And And so yeah, so that is that's the difference between VC LP and startup and raising investment. Now the success for raising money, it's not right. It's the way I see it. It always parang it just gives you a lifeline to do what you really think that's right, that can provide more value sa investor or shareholder. At the end of the day, people invest on you to get a return from their investment. Yes, yes, we're solving this problem, right? Yes, this is a good product. Yes, this is a good team. I like the team. I like the product. But it boils down in terms of if I invest on the company and the risk that I'm going to take, what are the expected return that I could think of pag nag-exit tong company to. And that's what companies are actually betting, or rather VC are betting on, right? So it's not a success. It's not a measure of success, I would say, but it's just one of those process in order for a company to succeed. But I don't think it is the main factor for a particular company to be successful.
And if ever lang nag-fail yung startup na yon, what happens? Edi may utang ako, I'm liable to the investors, is it?
No, you're not liable on well, it depends on the terms, right? It depends on the things that you are signing off. There's a different type of terms, like the keys and the safe. But the general one, as long as it's convert, you're not liable. You're not liable to basically when you're trying to wind down the company. But the challenge in there would be, it'd be much more difficult to raise money later on because of that. I mean, depending, of course, kung anong type ng failure, right? It could be the failure of, let's say, the market is not ready, for instance, or the market is too small, for example, right? Or it's too expensive to run a business, right? So there's a different explanation or ways bakit nagsasara yung company, but there's no responsibility on both sides as long as the terms are actually in place, which is the standard. I mean, if you look at the standard sa Y Combinator, for example, or 500 startup, there's a standard form of agreement for that.
Grabe, daming risk talaga involved in terms of business. What more itong mga ganitong klase ng startups, right? Especially in tech, lalo na ngayon na everything moves so fast and it's pandemic pa, di ba? Everything, lahat ng combination, lahat ng struggles, lahat ng problema is nandito at this very moment. Now, let's say, sige, you already got the funds. Now, how do you hire your first team?
I mean, for me, the way I look at it is, especially pag sa early stage, I look for more on generalist than actually skilled one, right? The reason for that is when you're running a company on the early stage, marami ka pang kailangang you need to solve. And there's a lot of things or moving pieces while you are actually building your company. So I think, in my opinion, one of the advantage of hiring a generalist person, pwede mo siyang i-throw on different type of activities or different role, and can adapt quickly and can execute quickly, right? So that's how I would like to look on the team or the people that I would like to hire. I would rather have someone in the early stage to start with, of course, is someone can juggle multiple roles at the same time. And then later on, as we all learn the business, we can be more specific about skill that we need to learn, and have a more specific role sa company. And then, of course, yung pinaka-fundamentals is kung yung tao talaga na yun is believe on what you're really doing, right? And we're so lucky with Denarii is people that we do have, sila pa rin yung kasama namin since, 2-3 years, 3 companies that we built from the past. And it will be much more easier for us to adapt new people because it's like we're already a pack or a team. And then anyone who comes in, we just nurture this person and then we just let them go and then continue executing. In terms of hiring, I mean, different modes of doing it. I mean, from our side, we do it like a sales cycle as well, and we preferred a referral from people. So we preferred na it comes from people that we trust and we know, that because that will be much more easier than actually vetting our own process. And yeah, and I would say that's how would I hire our first team.
Okay, so based on what you have said all throughout this conversation, parang starting from ideation, gusto mo makinig sa market, and in terms of hiring, gusto mo makinig naman dun sa mga tao na you trust, na kilala mo. Kasi they would vouch for the person that they're giving you, right?
Oh.
And I think it makes the process much simpler. Eh. I remember pag sinasabi ni Gary Vaynerchuk in terms of hiring, he's mainly about his intuition. Eh. Hindi niya na tinitingnan masyado yung skill set or what, and he's mainly focused on the character of the person that is in front of him. So, yun nga, it's all about moving fast in terms of startup. And sabi mo nga sa akin, pag nakapag-raise ka, you gotta move fast, scale within the year as much as possible so that you can grow the company faster. Now, I fully believe, as we transition to our closing, mayroon pala nag-comment pala dito, wait lang, may nagsabi dito si Mato, ayan, ganda nung replicating ng low cost. Oo, tama. Kailangan mo talagang i-maximize at a very low cost so that you can get maximum returns as much as possible. Now, I always believe na ang success ng isang company boils down dun sa kung sino yung nagli-lead nito, specifically to the founder. And my next question would be about you, Jon. What would be, kasi ito nakikita namin itong success ng Denarii, success ng na-accomplish mo all throughout these months and years. Ano lang to, byproduct to Byproduct to ng lahat ng ginagawa mo every day, the one that you think of, your mindset, your habits, and your routine. So I just want to know, Jon, ano ba yung success habits mo? And what is your specific mindset? How do you look at things? And I think that's what I want to replicate.
I think, well, I guess from my side, most important sa akin is, surrounded with people with the same mindset. I think yung always positive, they see the future, they see potential, they see opportunity. That helps me to start think about being more creative on what I do. So yun yung, I would say, not really a routine, but rather a habit of talking to people with similar interests, right? So like 2 days ago, I just had had a great dinner with a couple of friends with almost the same mindset I do have, which is bouncing ideas, solving problems, challenging the status quo, if you like. So that actually helps me to, I would say, parang exercise yung brain ko to think about outside the box, on how to solve things, on how to look for opportunity. I would say that would be the main factor sa akin ng not really a success. Well, not really. I think that, yeah. Well, I guess from my side, this is more a habit para sa akin, right? I tend to listen to more people that especially have the experience, learn from them with the same mindset. I would spend more time with a small circle, but have the same mindset for everyone to grow, right? And that's how I see it. And habits and routines, I guess it's more on, I think it's a continuous progression of how to become effective either as a leader, as a team, right? I mean, it's a continuous learning. I mean, it's every day there will always be a challenge. Learning from people around you, for example, from my colleagues, sa mga katrabaho ko sa Denarii, right? There's always something that I learn from them. And I guess, again, it's more on my habit of listening, if I will be on their shoes, how do they think? What are their mindset in terms of doing things? And that's how I see, I guess, myself about doing these habits and routines. It's more on having the same mindset with the people around me.
Yeah, okay. It's all about having yung mentors mo for that thing that you want to execute. But also, I think you are a great executioner. So it's not you mentioned din sabi don't aim for perfection, just go for progress. So ito, after you speak to the person na gusto mong malaman yung idea niya, when do you execute? Is it the next day, the next minute? Do you execute it if you really find it valuable?
If I get excited, and then after that validating it, right? So yun yung mga dilemma before where you get excited and then you execute in terms of building the product, which is I've learned a lot before. Pero when I get excited, I was like, okay, validate the idea, validate the product, and then, I mean, I don't need to wait, for a day or two, right? Because now it's much more easier to validate information. I mean, I remember like I was like coaching one of these very close friend of mine about they're having difficulty to sell this product, right? And the product is like what? It's like 25 dirhams, 30 dirhams only, right? And then they are worried with like 110, or 10 reasons why they think they cannot sell the product. And sabi ko, I mean, challenges and problem will always be there when you are when you're thinking about the kung paano ka hindi mag-progress, right? And I told them, why don't you start with the small things and start with people that you know? And then sinabi ko sa kanya is like, how many people you have in your contact list at the moment? I don't know, maybe 100, 200, 300, right? And these people, because kaya sila nasa contact list mo is probably they know you, right? You know them. You have this relationship together na either trust or something that there's connected between you and him or her, right? And why don't you start with that, right? That itself can be, you don't need to wait for a day or two to validate, for example, the idea. Just send message to WhatsApp on a particular group, ask about idea. That's basically how you can execute quickly. So in terms of, I mean, again, maraming reason just not to do it, but one reason to do it as well. And yeah, I think using your phone, you can do so much things, and you can do it now. You don't need to wait for a day or two.
Yeah, exactly. Kasi nga, yun yung mga kilala mo, you can start from your warm market and the warm audience. Now, ikaw, Jon, yung kinukwento mo sa amin before, ang dami mo na simulan bago pa yung Denarii, and you burned so much personal money. Nagawa mo, nakwento mo sa amin yun eh. And I think failure is part of the game eh. Now, what about for this? Let's say nasabi mo na yung mga tips mo for us. Yung failure ba is still something inevitable, even all of these things that you mentioned for people na nag-start ng company? And Isayo, how did you overcome those failures? Kasi ang hirap eh, you're a family man, pero you still were able to manage through those failures. So,
I think it boils down on the people around you, right? Like, if I do it by myself, I think I won't be able to do it for sure. But I have a very supportive like network or people that love what I do, believe in what I do, no matter how many times I fail, right? So it is still inevitable for first-time startup to founders, to fail, right? And I think it's a good thing. I would always recommend or advise na, try to fail fast, because that will actually learn you. Matututo ka pa doon. You will learn more from that, and then you can execute much better on different ideas, or different products or different companies. And yeah, I mean, from my side, it's completely different, I would say. But again, it's the people around you, and accept failure, right? And learn from that failure, and making sure that the next thing that next company or next startup that you'll do, kung gusto mo talagang mag-run ng business, is you have more, you're more likely to fail than to succeed. And even the 5% or the 1% chances, people probably like me would take that, right? So sabi nila, you only need to be successful once, and I think that's what we're betting, I guess. Yeah, I think for us is, we look more on the bigger picture than actually what can go wrong, right? We look on what can it become, right, in the next, 5 years or 10 years. And I mean, for the last 18 months, we've progressed. We've seen the exponential growth of the team, of the company, of the numbers that we have, and for us, we will just continuously doing it. And I would say, similar with other founders, like, you'll have like 1,000 reasons why you can actually fail. Don't think about that. Think about this, main reason why do you think you can succeed, right? And that would be again setting your mindset, and every day if you wake up in the morning, this is the focus that you would like to do, and just to be successful, and take it one step at a time in terms of solving the problem, and having more people involved, and with the same mindset will actually help to boost the morale of the team or the co-founder to think about the success path of building a company.
Grabe, iba talagang support group. Kasi we will always fail and minsan pag nag-fail ka, yung support group mo pa yung mag-bring down sa'yo pag mali yung mga nakapalibot sa'yo, and yun yung isa sa mga, and gusto ko sinabi mo na fail fast kasi parang when you say fail fast, you can learn faster din. Kasi that's how I view failure. Now, eto na siguro last question ko, bro. Is this kind of life something that you recommend to anyone? Kasi not everyone has the high risk profile like you do Pero is this something that you can recommend?
I think I would love to. I mean, honestly speaking, like in the general, like in general terms, without very more specific, I won't recommend building companies or building startups. It's very difficult. There's a lot of sacrifices. Friendship, families, time, health, life, right? So there's a lot of factors that needs to be to sacrifice as well. But at the same time, it could be fun, right? I mean, as long as gusto mo yung ginagawa mo, right? So that's a fun part of that. So that's more on the general one. I would not recommend to build a company or to start a business or startup rather. But if I'm going to put this sa Filipino community or diaspora, I would recommend for to see more Filipino to be to explore opportunities in the tech startup scene, right? I know personally, marami akong kilala mga very talented Filipinos, very good in programming, very creative in terms of idea, right? But they're not just push or maybe they're not a risk taker, right? But there's a lot of things sa atin sa mga Filipino that could actually do a lot of things from the startup scene, and I believe that they could actually do it. But I guess it's not for everyone, as you've said. But if I'm going to wish, I would love to see more Filipino excel in the techpreneur scene, either outside sa Pilipinas or within the Philippines. Because for us, like, we're very typical entrepreneurial people, right? But kaso nga lang hindi tayo laging, like, not that high risk that we do have. So that's one of the things that we are lacking and one we're missing. But we are seeing like a lot of progression in terms of Filipino startups in the scene now. But hopefully this actually will be the step or the path to see more Filipino or underserved community rather, right? Sa startup scene.
Yeah, kasi majority ng mga Filipino, I think, would love to start a business with low capital and high returns in a matter of months. And that's a dream, okay? Walang ganun. It's a scam, all right? Ito na yung final question ko. Since this program and my advocacy is all about financial literacy, and that's the reason bakit purpose-driven advisor nilagay kong name for my page, is because I want people to maximize or use their finances in a more meaningful way. Now, as for you, John, how would you want to be remembered in terms of how you used your money? Say, if everything is said and done, ano yung gusto mong, paano ka nila makilala in terms of how you maximize your resources or how you used it?
I think I always have this notion of pay it forward, right? So the notion of, if I can pay it to the next people that I can help and move that person or other community or that group or individuals for them to become the next one, I think that's how I would like to see it. It's not, and I think it becomes like more network effect or domino effect, if you like, right? So ang always mentality ko is more on, if I can help this person to achieve what he wants in life, I believe that person will do the same thing, which is paid forward. So if we can have this continuous effect of paying it forward from the entrepreneurial perspective, I think that will be an amazing story to tell and to have as well as an entrepreneur, right? The more you can influence and help them to progress, be it individually, either entrepreneurial or personal life, I think that would be the best way to look at it.
So do you see yourself being a VC in the future for doing that? Using your personal resources to help other startups?
Sana, yeah, and of course. I mean, every founders, I would say, like, one way or another, they will be looking in terms of participating in investing sa the next generation of technology startups. And yeah, I think naisip ko rin yun, isa sa mga aspiration ko maybe in the future, hopefully.
Okay, so will you fund my startup? It's a pitch. Wala pang.
We don't have the idea yet, so we don't.
It's a question that I have to ask sometime in the future, okay? And today's takeaway ni Kuya Jay about this session of how you start a startup with Jon Santillan is that ang pinakamahalaga pa rin would be your idea. And in order for you to validate that, you have to ask your target audience, your problem, yung mga problem na gusto mong i-solve, you have to validate that through surveys of different ways on how you can check if talaga bang suitable. It's something that you really have to pursue. Without doing that, mahihirapan ka. Huwag mong unahin yung products or services. And then, make sure na you are surrounded with the right people kasi nga, startup life is very hard and you really have to make sure na when you face failure, you have to learn from it and then move on and then go and try doing some other things for you to be able to progress. And yun lang muna for today. And I'm really glad that I have Jon with me to tackle this topic. And Jon, saan ka ba nila makikita? How can they reach you or can they find you?
Well, I'm available on my LinkedIn, Jon Santillan, Facebook. But of course, sa lahat ng nakikinig kay Jay, please let's support Jay. I think yung advocacy niya, yung motivation niya to do these things, it's not only for his personal interest, but interest with more people or helping more people to be more financially literate, right? And yeah, let's support fellow Filipino, si Jay, and anything that actually he do online. From my side, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, I will be like on all social media. But please, sa mga hindi pa nakakasubok ng Denarii Cash, please download Denarii Cash and refer friends if you know anyone that would like to send money back home. So yeah.
All right. Well, that's about it. Thank you so much, Jon, for giving your time with me today and sharing your expertise and your wisdom about the startup life. And for you guys who's watching this, until now yung 5 millions na nanonood sa amin ngayon, thank you so much, ha? And see you on my next episode. We'll be tackling more about business next week as I interview a person who's also into the more on the traditional side of business, I think. So, Jon, maraming salamat.
Ayos.
Ayos. It's a great time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.